Hello, everyone. I'm Jesse Bergman.
And I'm John Kimmel.
And we are Punch It Entertainment. And we're back here again with our fourth Kickstarter, John.
Yeah.
It's incredible, right?
It's kind of amazing.
So this is a really new Kickstarter idea. So I want to introduce ourselves a little bit first, and then we'll dive right into what makes this Kickstarter different for us. Okay. Sure. So I am the president of Punch It Entertainment. I'm also our senior designer. I am the lead designer for the game Battle for Sularia, which inspired and brought about this art book. And John, you are?
I'm the vice president. I'm Jesse's original co-partner in this endeavor. And my focus is more on the creative side of things. So this actually is kind of more of a passion project for me because we get to really showcase the artwork of the game in this format.
Right. And this really, was something that, we didn't know how to approach to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. We didn't have a robust enough amount of material at the start of the game to really develop it. So we're going to jump right into why we're going to do Kickstarter here, what the goal of this project is, and then we'll lead more into more details about the book.
Cool.
All right, so why Kickstarter, John? What was the reason why we decided to go to Kickstarter this time?
Sure. I mean, we are still, by definition, a small publisher. So Kickstarter is a great vehicle for us to bring our products to market. And Battle for Sularia has been successful every time we've taken that game to Kickstarter. So we've had the original starter, the Battle Begins, successfully funded. Our very first game, first outing Kickstarter was funded. And then we had our expansion, Blood, Profit, and Glory. And as you mentioned briefly, originally we didn't have a whole lot of artwork. And in fact, when we went to Kickstarter with our very first game, we had a very small little digital art book as kind of an incentive for one of our reward tiers, I believe, right? And we got a lot of favorable responses from that. And we also had some favorable responses through the convention circuit that we went through. But now that we've gone through The Battle Begins, we've gone through Blood, Profit, and Glory, we now have a substantial amount of artwork collected.
We do.
And through the course of that time period, we've also we have a fiction writer that came on board and wrote a number of chapters related to both The Battle Begins and Blood, Profit, and Glory. So now we're at a point where in order to make this thing come to life, we thought, well, it worked for our games for Battle for Sularia, so let's see if we can get this kickstarted as well.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that I started noticing as we started looking at publishing a book was there's a lot of correlation between publishing games and publishing books. There's a lot of similarities in terms of the logistics and what it takes and the monetary requirements to make that happen as well. But we also found there's a few more kind of evolved services for books. And so one of the things that we're really excited about this project is that we're able to bring it to you with a relatively low funding goal of like $3,260. So that's a really good opportunity for us.
Yeah, I wish we could have our games goal that low, but maybe someday.
Maybe someday, for sure. So, Kickstarter, like you said, was the perfect platform. And with our combined knowledge of past Kickstarters, we were really able to bring this project to life using prior experience. So it wasn't like reinventing the wheel for us.
Exactly.
All right. So, John, obviously you touched base about it already. Why an art book?
Right.
But I think more importantly, we'll tell a little backstory because I think it's kind of interesting. We were at Gen Con 2 years ago, and one of the Battle for Solaria had just come out. The game had just come out. It'd been out on the market for maybe about 4 months at that point.
Right.
And we were getting a ton of people going, man, we just absolutely love your art. We just love it to death. But there was always a but to that caveat, right? And that but was always, how do I make it bigger? I want more of it. I want to see it in greater detail. And we really talked a lot about how do we do that? How do we make the art be more prevalent? And if you've seen us in conventions, you may have seen us selling prints and things of that nature, but really that's about the extent of as far as we'd ever gone with making artwork more prevalent to our customer base and to our followers and things of that nature. So tell me, John, what was your vision for the art book and why was the art book so important for us?
That's a great question. So my background, again, being an artist, I've always had a passion for art. And on a personal note, I collect art books, and I always had my own personal dream was if I got into publishing games and or any kind of vehicle that allowed me to showcase art and story, I really wanted to have that material collected into a physical volume. I'm a little older But I think there's still appreciation for that, obviously, to have this collected volume of work. And furthermore, as Jesse mentioned, the card game's like 2.5 by 3.5. It's a little small card. Right. So when you have this really amazing art, you want to have something that you can get a chance to just to appreciate it more, see it better. And this allows us to do that. Furthermore, as far as the art itself goes, like I mentioned briefly, now that we have a number of pieces, it just seemed to make the most sense. Furthermore, some of you may have noticed that a lot of books are typically portrait or tall as opposed to wide, but the format for our cards, for the art itself, is a horizontal format for the art, and I really didn't want to interrupt that. In a book format, I was concerned if you run it horizontally across the book, likely the art would go into the seam. Mm-hmm. And, this is kind of speaking to like John as a kid, as a young art collector, art enthusiast. If I wanted to maybe pull the art out and frame it, it would be much more difficult to deal with that seam that you have to deal with if it were to go into the gutter, technical term, of the book. This way, the entire art spans the page, and it's not interrupted by the gutter at all. So if you were someone like me that wanted to pin this up on a wall or on your desk, you could do that. You might have to buy an extra book if you want to have one.
One to tear apart.
Yeah. Sure. That's up to you. But anyways.
Well, I think one other thing, we talk a lot about the artwork here, and you did touch on it just briefly, the story. And Matt Oakes, our fiction writer, has just done an absolutely phenomenal job in writing a lot of fiction. I mean, there's a whole novel of fiction here.
Yeah.
I mean, really, truly.
It's even without the art interrupting it, it's still 250, maybe more pages. And then, of course, with the art, it expands 275. It may even go beyond that if we hit our stretch goals, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. It will go over 300 pages.
Yeah. So obviously, we felt like we finally had enough content to bring an art book / fiction book to Kickstarter. And that's what you're looking at today, is the culmination of that in the first volume. So we call it our first volume because we hope that this is a success and can lead to many, many more Sularia-based fiction books.
I'm glad you pointed that out. This is volume 1. And so hopefully with the success of this, we can continue to go into other volumes and tell other stories. I know Matt has a number of different ideas he would like to share. If you follow us with our game, you may know that we've kind of drawn to a conclusion with our first 2 factions in the game, and we will be introducing new factions here in the near future. And hopefully, with this particular book, it'll be the springboard that allows us to have more stories.
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly what this is intended to do. All right. So, John, we've talked about why we're doing Kickstarter. We've talked about why the art book. We've introduced ourselves. We've done all of this up to this point, but really probably everybody's wondering, what are they buying?
Sure.
And I want to explain that a little bit, and then you can kind of deep dive a little bit more into exactly, what some of the other stuff means in terms of the components, the base quality of the book. I mean, we were very cautious about making sure we built a very high quality product right from the get-go, because we believe that our fans and customers of ours deserve nothing but the best always.
Sure.
Now, there's obviously limitations to that, and so that's where stretch goals come in, and we'll talk about that here a little bit further down the line. But to begin with, what are you exactly buying? So you can always just pledge $1 just to get updates on the content. So that means that you can pledge $1, you can see what we're communicating to our backers about, you can be part of the campaign, make comments on the campaign, really just get involved with us, and you have little to no monetary output. But for $15, you actually are going to start getting things, digital things now. And that's going to be 6 wallpapers, correct? It's going to be a digital copy of the art book in PDF form, which we will deliver via email, or if it's too large to deliver via email, we will have a downloadable link that people will be able to pull down from on that. And then once we go from there, we actually start getting into the physical book. And so we've got basically 2 physical book pledges. And if you want to explain that, why we did that, what we're trying to accomplish there, I would love for you to explain what the reasoning behind that was.
Sure. So as Jesse mentioned, we have these 2 formats that are digital and physical. But even within the physical realm, if you will, we have what's just your standard We call it the Journeyman pledge tier, or reward tier. The Journeyman is the first tier that has a physical book, and it's just that. It's the book. You actually get a bookmark, and then you get all the digital components as well. The wallpapers that Jesse mentioned, the PDF of the book if you want to read it on a digital device. That's the option. But as far as the physical difference goes, after the Journeyman, you have the Sage tier, and the Sage basically means that your book's a little bit more special. It's a little bit more unique. It's a numbered version of the book, and we only have 250 numbered books. And at the Sage tier, it releases basically starting at number 6 up to the 250 number. So for those of you that like a little bit more uniqueness or a slight collectability factor, it takes a little bit of time for us to sign these or number these books. And so that's why we have that numbered tier, just for those folks that want something a little bit more special. And then, of course, the highest level tier that we have is the Magnus. That particular tier has everything that the Sage tier has, with a little more. So the Magnus tier, I mentioned that it's 250 numbered books. This actually starts from 1 to 5. So there's only 5 Magnus level pledges, right? And so that's 1 through 5.
Once they're gone, they're gone.
They're gone. That's it. Right. And then in addition to that, you have a physical item, another physical item as well. Basically, they're art canvases. So these art canvases are 18 inches by 24 inches. They're horizontal format, so they're wider than they are taller, and they look kind of like a painting. Basically, it's a canvas material. And again, very exclusive. And at this level, there's only 5. What's nice about these, what will add even a more exclusivity to these particular canvases, is that we give our pledge or backers 3 different options. So I actually went through our community, our Battle for Sularia community. If you're not a part of that Facebook group, I encourage you to join that if you want. But through a series of polls, we determined, based on that community, what were some of the 3 most successful images that they wanted to see in canvas form. Right. And so we broke it down by faction. So there's a Scythian faction canvas print, and that's Furtum Brachii. There's a Jotun faction print that ended up being Lady Morgana, the Fang, she's awesome, which looks really good too. And then the mercenary faction, or the support faction that we have in our game, was Johnny Cash. Yep. So gunslinger type characters. So those were the 3 characters that backers can choose from.
Boy, it's going to be, if I was a backer at that level, I'd have a hard time picking from those 3, because I think they're 3 of the most powerful pieces of artwork that's ever been developed for the game. And I like all 3 of those a lot. So yeah, definitely what you're buying in this is not only getting a ton of great goodies for supporting us today, but on top of that, like I said, we wanted to make the quality of the book very high to begin with. And so while we're starting as a softbound, just mainly due to pure cost reasons, the internal components of the pages and things like that are very high quality. They're a high cover page weight. We're really not skimping on any part of the production quality of this book to start. And so while we're going to talk about the stretch goals and what it looks like as we start stretching and as we get more people involved in this campaign, the more we share it and get it out there into the world, you can rest assured that even in the beginning, this book is something that you could be really proud to have on a coffee table. We'll certainly be proud to have it on ours.
And I should add to that, actually, to be clear, it's a softbound book, and it measures 12 inches wide by 9 inches tall. So if you want a more physical understanding of what it actually is, the physical book is a softbound book with the highest quality of paper and components as far as the production value of that style of book can be. So it's a perfect bound. So it has a nice flat spine, and it doesn't cause as much distortion as some of the other binding processes out there.
Yep, exactly. All right, so now we're going to talk about the really exciting part, which is obviously once we get funded, we're super jazzed about that, and I'm very confident that we're going to reach that goal, especially because this is the lowest funding request we've ever had on Kickstarter. We've fulfilled much higher and larger and bolder campaigns in terms of funding cost requirements than this project, and I believe that fans of Sularia are going to just flock to this idea. So let's talk a little about what happens once we hit that funding goal.
Sure.
I believe we're going to have a really good opportunity there. So the first 3 stretch goals are content related, right? We're adding to the book. We're bringing more into the book.
Right. In fact, I believe it's maybe even 4. So we have a feature that basically we call it like a spotlight, but it'll spotlight a new chapter for the book, which is the Jotun faction. Another upgrade or stretch goal that is the Scythian faction, and then we stretch into more mercenary content.
Right.
And then if we get to this far, then it'll be a preview of our upcoming expansion, Reign of Terror, which features 2 new factions, the Breton and the Ex-Solarian.
So that'll be an actual fiction segue to the next chapter of Sularia, if you will, the next season, if you want to call it that. I think that's a really, I'm really excited to see that. Obviously, we're really excited to get our fiction writers back on track in terms of writing new fiction for the game. And, again, like we mentioned before, that's what this whole campaign's about. It's about making a book that has all of the current content, getting it onto people's coffee tables, but also helping support the future of this world that we've been building. And, obviously we can't do that without those pledges and things like that. But then after we get past the content pieces, the book gets a little unwieldy in size to continue to add content to it, right? Like it starts getting bigger and more expensive and a number of things like that.
This is where we wanted to pivot into, while we believe the softbound book in quality is perfect, if you can have something that's more perfect, well, then you go up to the next level, and that would be a hardbound book.
Right.
And within the hardbound, we can increase not only the cover, having a hardbound, we can increase the quality of the paper as well. It'll be a little bit thicker, more robust interior page stock. Yep. It will also have a dust jacket to go for that hardcover eventually if we stretch into that.
Right.
And then if we get past the dust jacket, then I believe we have a spot UV finish, which for the actual cover, that means you'll get a little bit more of a dimensionality to the overall look of the book. Wherever there's art, you'll see a little bit of a gloss finish, and then aspects of the book will kind of fade back into that matte finish as well. So if you're a fan of art books, especially gamer art books, like I said, that's a thing that I'm really into. Without going into specific names,
right?
That level of detail with that spot UV is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things that John's really touched base on, if you're a fan of art books, but I also think if you're a fan of science fiction novellas and you're a fan of rich science fiction based worlds, we've really pulled a lot. I wish we could list all the inspiration, but we're very afraid that maybe somebody would be mad at us for that. So we're not going to say where all of our inspiration came from, but I'm going to tell you now that if it was a popular science fiction brand over the last 25 years, it's a very good chance that John and I have been very involved in that.
We're kids of the 80s, so you can pretty much assume what may have inspired us.
You can start pulling from all of those, as well as a lot more modern science fiction as well, both garnering from fiction, garnering from video game based sources, all kinds of different places. And I think it's certainly influenced the world that we've put together, and the countless hours that John and I have tirelessly gone over every minute detail of this world. Not necessary for the game by any stretch, but something that we were so passionate about and felt like it was so necessary. And so we really hope at the end of this project, with a successfully funded book, and not game, book this time, that we will actually come out with something that really feeds to you how passionate we are about this world, and that you'll find it as enriching of an experience that we found just in creating it.
Exactly.
All right, well, thank you so much for watching this video. We appreciate it. We definitely hope we've earned your pledge today, and we'll see you very soon and talk a little bit more.
Thanks.